You know, every great app on your phone, every single complex system that a company relies on, it all started as a simple idea. But getting from that light bulb moment to a finished product is, well, it's a journey through what can feel like pure chaos. Without a solid plan, even the most brilliant ideas can get tangled up and completely lost. So how do we tame this beast? That's exactly what IT project management is all about.
This quote, wow, it just absolutely nails the central problem, doesn't it? I mean, just imagine trying to write a novel with a whole team of people, all of them editing the exact same chapters at the same time. That's a software project in a nutshell. And the natural result? Yep, you guessed it, the overall chaos.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to go on a little journey from understanding this chaos to actually mastering it. We'll kick things off by really diagnosing the problem, then we'll compare the two major philosophies for fighting back. After that, I'm going to give you a practical toolkit of essential controls, and we'll wrap it all up by focusing on the one thing that can truly make or break any project.
So let's dig right into the heart of the problem. Why do so many IT projects seem to fail, even when you have good intentions and a really talented team? Well, it turns out there are a few very specific culprits that are usually to blame.
Okay, this slide basically breaks down the four horsemen of IT project chaos. First, you've got multiple people trying to edit the same files all at once. Second, the plan itself is basically a moving target. Third, every little component is interconnected, so one tiny change can set off this huge domino effect of failures. And finally, you have the silent project killer, scope creep, where new requests just keep piling on and on. It's a perfect storm for failure.
So how do we fight back against this storm? Well, broadly speaking, there are two major philosophies for bringing order to the chaos. Think of it like this. It's the difference between building a house from a rigid, detailed blueprint versus cooking an amazing meal with an adaptive recipe.
First up, we've got the traditional approach, which a lot of people call the Waterfall Model. And honestly, it's exactly like building a house. You create a super detailed blueprint first, defining every single requirement. Then you build the foundation, then the walls, then the roof, all in a strict sequential order. You'd never start painting the walls before the foundation is poured, right? Each phase has to be totally complete before the next one can even begin.
And the definitive guide, kind of the Bible for this blueprint approach, is the Project Management Body of Knowledge, or the PMBOK guide. As you can see, it's this massive framework from the Project Management Institute. It organizes literally everything into these knowledge areas, covering scope, time, cost, risk, you name it. It is the ultimate rulebook for plan-driven projects.
And this slide just perfectly captures that philosophical divide. Over on the left, the blueprint is all about processes, tools, and documentation. But on the right, the recipe is all about people, collaboration, and interactions. The blueprint says stick to the plan, no matter what, while the recipe says be ready to change at a moment's notice. It's a really fundamental difference, right? Prediction versus adaptation.
So what does this agile mindset look like in practice? Well, it's all about delivering functional pieces of the software quickly and often. That's your main measure of progress, not just checking boxes on some plan. This is the heart of frameworks like Scrum, where small, self-organizing teams work in short cycles. They're constantly communicating, adapting, and this is the big one, they welcome change. Because change means you're building what the customer truly needs, even if they didn't know it at the start.
Okay, so whether you choose that rigid blueprint or the more adaptive recipe, you still need a core toolkit to maintain some stability. Let's take a look at the three essential disciplines that prevent any project from just spiraling into chaos.
First up is risk management. And listen, this isn't about running around putting out fires, it's about fire prevention. It's the discipline of looking into the future and constantly asking, what could go wrong here? You identify potential disasters before they happen, figure out how bad they could be, and then you prioritize which ones you absolutely have to tackle first. Now, the key here is that you can't prevent every single risk. That's impossible. So you have to be smart. This is where the 80-20 rule comes in. You focus on the 20% of risks that can cause 80% of the damage. And what are those big, scary risks? Almost always they come down to three things: poorly understood requirements, that dreaded scope creep, and just flat-out unrealistic deadlines.
Next up in the toolkit, quality management. This is the discipline of making sure you build the right product and that you build it the right way. It is absolutely not about doing some final inspection at the very end. It's about defining what quality even means for your project. Is it speed, security, ease of use, and then weaving checks for that quality into every single step of development.
This really says it all. You don't just stumble into a high-quality product by accident. Features like reliability or security can be huge cost drivers, and if you don't plan for them from the very beginning, you either won't get them or you'll pay a fortune trying to shoehorn them in later.
And finally, our third tool is configuration management. Okay, think of this as the project's master librarian. With so many people editing so many different documents, code files, and designs, all of which are interconnected, you need a system to track every version of every single thing, who changed what and when. This system keeps it all perfectly straight.
And this brings us right back to where we started. Remember that overall chaos we talked about in the beginning? Well, configuration management is the direct, practical, hands-on solution. It transforms that tangled mess of simultaneous edits into an organized, trackable system. It literally imposes order on the chaos.
So we've talked philosophies and we've talked toolkits, but you know what? None of it matters one bit if you build the whole thing on a cracked foundation. And in IT projects, that foundation is understanding what you're actually supposed to build in the first place.
This discipline is called requirements engineering, and it really is an art form. It's the absolutely critical process of discovering what stakeholders actually need, which, by the way, is not always what they say they want. It's all about analyzing, documenting, and then validating that shared understanding before a single line of code ever gets written.
If you take away only one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this. A mistake made here, a tiny misunderstanding of a core need, is exponentially more expensive to fix later on. Think about it. Fixing a flawed idea on a whiteboard is cheap. Fixing that same flawed idea after you spent 6 months and $1 million building it, that's a potential disaster.
So how do you get it right? Well, best practices tell us to start with a feasibility study, which is basically just asking, is this even possible and is it worth doing? Then you have to separate what the system must do, like process a payment, from how well it must do it, like process it in under 1 second. And finally, you use visual models, like software blueprints, to make sure everyone is looking at the same picture.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground, from what causes all this chaos in the first place to the philosophies and tools we can use to finally establish some control. Let's pull it all together into a clear, actionable summary.
Here it is. This is your path. First, just acknowledge the inherent chaos and accept that you need structure. Second, consciously choose your philosophy. Are you building with a fixed blueprint or are you cooking with an adaptive recipe? Third, no matter which path you choose, master your control toolkit of risk, quality, and configuration management. And finally, always build on a solid foundation by getting the requirements right from day one.
And that leaves us with one final question to think about. As you approach your next project, or even as you look at the ones you're on right now, ask yourself this. Is its structure designed to follow a stable, predictable plan, or is it built to embrace and adapt to the inevitable change you know is coming? The answer to that question will define its path to success.